Tell me why compost is so important when it comes to climate change.
You want me to start?
Let's start, yeah.
Well, everyone should watch the movie Kiss the Ground.
I've watched it.
Yeah. Well, in that movie, they show you there's two components to climate change. One we all know about reducing our emissions, and everybody can help out a little bit there. But what we're overlooked is that the other component is that if we respected and recycled all our organic matter and turned it into compost and then spread that compost on soils to improve the soil, for every 1% you increase your organic matter. Now I know that's getting a little technical for some people, but
It's okay.
it's not that high of a science. For every 1% that you increase the organic matter of your soil, you're sequestering 10 times the amount of carbon that would normally be in the atmosphere.
So when you're taking it out of the atmosphere.
Holding it in the soil,
Uh-huh.
and that nourishes your plants and holds moisture and aerates the soil. But I'll give you an example. This farm, when we bought it, it was an abandoned farm with depleted soil. It had soil of maybe 1% organic matter. Some areas might have had 2 or 3% organic matter. Now all our fields have 10 to 20% organic matter. So, and this is just one little farm. So you can imagine if not only all the farmers, all the gardeners, and everybody, if they just didn't waste their food scraps and composted their organic matter, we could sequester, we could turn around climate change. We could turn around desertification. It's so simple.
It is simple.
It's simple.
But for some unknown reason, to me, people don't get simple.
And the leaves we take out of our gardens, all the trimmings.
Yep.
Besides the food scraps, there's a lot of resources just around our yards.
Yeah.
All the wood chips and grass clippings, it's all compostable. And there's different qualities compost. We're trying to have the cleanest and the best for high-end farm production and garden production. But there's other sites that could use a compost that was that are growing on the ornamentals or roadsides or reclaiming, revegetating gravel banks. They wouldn't need such a high-end compost like we produce.
It's not only so great for when you're adding it to the soil, all the things it does for the soil of capturing carbon from the atmosphere, but there's also, the other way, if you take those food scraps and organic matter and bring it to the landfill, instead of turning into a rich compost, it's producing tons of methane gas, which is the number one cause of climate change.
You don't want that product being produced.
No.
Not at all.
But we're finding incredible benefits also. I mean, we're in such a drought year right now.
Yes.
And our soil's holding great water, keeping our crops really, nourished.
They look unbelievable. I mean, here we are, tomorrow's the first day of September.
Yeah.
And it looks like springtime over here. Everything's so healthy looking.
It's not 100%. It's been a little harder to germinate some seeds, but once they've established a little bit, there's enough moisture in that soil to keep things going. And the things I'm really noticing are when it does rain, that water, because there's so much organic matter, it's like a sponge. It just sinks in and can really go in and really penetrate, really hold it. There's no runoff.
Right, which is important during a drought season.
Yeah, moisture holding capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
When the soils don't have as much life in them, it tends to run off like on asphalt. It's on soils that have been harmed. But when you have a real good living soil, it holds the moisture.
Yeah.
We just have one type of compost that we make, and we make it from a diverse range of ingredients.
Yeah.
So it has yard materials as well as food scraps and fish. We call it fish gurry, fish scraps, and shellfish as well. And
not the actual shell, right?
The actual shell too.
The actual shell
comes in with meat and some seaweed as well. And we have a good balance of carbon and nitrogen materials that we mix up this recipe. And it does take us about a year. And that's the compost that we use and sell here.
Now, will those shells Will they decompose, or do you have to grind them up, or you just let it stay?
They break down over time,
do
but
break
we
down.
screen the compost at the
Oh,
end.
okay.
So there's little pieces.
It's little pieces of shell, and that
Yep.
gives you the calcium, so you don't need the lime.
Right.
It's a great source of calcium.
Yeah.
You deal with whatever's in your bioregion. We're dealing with, since we're the ocean state, we get seaweed from beach communities. The fish processing plants bring us the part that we don't eat.
Uh-huh.
It's
We get Roger Williams Zoo bedding and manure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
and a lot of horse manure and bedding.
Yeah.
And the arborists, the tree companies, bring us their wood chips. So all this stuff is valuable organic matter that just needs to be composted. You know, composting is going on in nature all the time. We're just accelerating the process a little bit.
One thing you'll notice that we don't use the term waste. So it's not food waste or fish waste or yard waste. It's all resources.
Yeah.
These are food scraps, or, you know, we just have different terminology so that
that makes
it can
sense.
start to, you know, teach in our minds, train it differently to treat it like a resource and not something to throw out. Yeah.
Words are important because
Yes.
and the age. Jane started right from a baby on this farm, always composting, but a lot of young kids don't get it. You know, they're taught, they're conditioned that it's goes in the trash can. Well, it just, your apple core, your banana peel, your coffee grinds, none of that should be going in a trash can.
There's a lot of adults who don't get it.
No, they were conditioned, conditioned, and
Who do you sell a lot of your products to? Is it people who own homes, or people, farmers, industry people?
All of the above. Yeah, we do some bagging. Just a small percentage of our product is bagged, and it's at garden centers for people that just want a couple pots. We have landscapers that come, and then farms that get bigger truckloads.
Yeah.
You know,
I
everything.
noticed there's quite a few very, very large piles
Yes.
on
Yes.
the property.
And have you noticed the very
And
large,
trucks
coming
coming
in?
in.
The trucks,
Yes.
and we can hear them.
Yeah.
The piles, are they at different stages in life, or is that what we're doing here? And
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Just like the farm, there's lots of different stages of life
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. The compost operation is our niche that helps pay all the bills. But you know, we have an accumulating area for the dumping of the carbonaceous material. When we call it carbon, we're talking about all this organic matter is food for microorganisms.
Okay.
They want a balanced diet, just like us, of carbohydrate and protein. So we start with the trucks in one area dumping the carbohydrate, the wood chips and the leaves and the sawdust beddings and whatnot. And in another area, we have the mixing area where the protein-rich material comes in, the fish scraps or the meat scraps that we're getting from pre-consumer food processing businesses. It's a science and an art. Too much science takes the fun out of the game, but you need to know the science.
you have to get to that point of the real healthy type of organic matter that you want to create.
And some of the science is really fun.
Yeah.
I love looking
Yeah,
in the microscope.
she likes the
Yeah,
microscope.
yeah.
And you
But
do
back
a lot
to
of that.
back to your original question where I digress. You know, you have your accumulating pile, and you mix it. You have your mixing piles, and then you have your turning piles, and then you have your curing pile. So there is all these what you look at as little mountains of compost. They're all in different stages as they get to be to the point where they get screened and then cured before they're sold. And it takes us about a year. You know, you can read about composting real fast. I wouldn't buy into it.
That's pretty much just dehydrated food scraps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to properly compost, we've been doing it since 1977, and our process takes about a year.
Now, I noticed you have bees,
Yes, we do have bees. Yeah.
and how many hives do you have?
Just 3 hives.
But it's enough to pollinate the area, I'm guessing.
I rely more on the native pollinators.
Native
That's what I'm
bees,
really
yeah.
trying to. I'm planting for the native pollinators.
Okay.
But yeah, the bees, you know, they're great for honey. They're the only ones
Yeah,
that
I was
make
just
honey is the
gonna say,
honeybees.
making honey?
Yeah.
Again, it's terminology. In our society, we use the word pest all the time, but
Yeah.
they're really just insects. And when they're imbalance, when you have the parasites and predators, it's just another insect, and they're all working together for the bigger picture, just like the compost is working together for the bigger picture. So what we're learning is the more diversity you have,
Yeah.
the more less likely you're going to have the imbalances, that the one plant is going to attract some kind of insect that is the predator or parasite of another kind of
Okay.
insect. So
So they're actually feeding off the other insect.
yeah, they're sending signals to each other that we don't understand, but we're just starting to learn that
That's incredible.
having the healthy soil with more diversity, things keep getting better and better.
Yeah, because you don't have to, as you said, use pesticides.
Right.
Yeah.
And so everything you grow becomes almost pesticide free
Yes.
because the soil's so healthy, and these so-called pests are
Just
doing
another
their
insect.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And occasionally we have an imbalance, you know, but we can live with it because we have so much diversity. It's not like you're betting the farm on one monoculture crop, you know.
Usually just takes a little bit of understanding that pest. This spring I had there was a kind of a bloom of asparagus beetle on our asparagus plants.
Oh,
And so I
really?
just dove in to the research on asparagus beetle and
Yep.
what their life cycle is. And when they're in their larvae stage,
Yeah.
their biggest predator is nematodes. And our compost actually has quite a few nematodes, all sorts of beneficial nematodes. And so I made up a strong batch. I took an area that I could see. I have a beautiful microscope. I could see there was nematode rich. We made some compost tea and sprayed that on the asparagus, the soil around the
great.
asparagus. And it took about a week, and there was a significant decline in asparagus beetle. So it just took a little research of
science
who's
and
going to
research.
balance who there. And it
In
can
our generation, when you studied agriculture,
Yeah.
you kind of got the feeling that you were always fighting nature. In Jane's generation, they're cooperating with nature.
Right.
And it's,
it's more joyful.
Oh, I
I-
would think so.
I don't want to
Knowing
fight.
you're
I
doing
want
something
to,
good.
yeah. I don't
Yeah.
want to fight with anything. I want to bring about more,
So,
life
but-
and cooperation.
the more young people that get on board with that, and the more the old people let go of our dysfunction
That's a great,
and,
yeah.
and let them take over, the better off we'll be. And it's vitally needed, you know.
Yeah.
Back to when we thought we were fighting nature, you're always trying to take something from the land. Where now we realize you can't just take, you got to put back.
So we're learning.
Yeah.
We're all learning. We just need to have more people learn. And so you're doing a wonderful thing here. And
It's worked for us. It's worked out great.
yeah, and I want to thank you for explaining all this great information to us.
Thank you for
Alan.
what
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah.